Welcome to Shonia Studio. In this playlist you can watch crime stories from all over the world, where apart from gaining knowledge about crime stories in other parts of the world, it can also provide knowledge about, for example, the culture and habits of the people in that country. Don't forget to like, share and subscribe to this channel if you like our video. Thank you. December 2018 to mid-2019. Then there was exciting news about the death of a female backpacker from Essex, England, who had just finished graduating and decided to travel around the world before starting work. Her name is Grace Millane. Whether it was a coincidence or what, she was born on the 2nd of December 1996 and was declared murdered on her 22nd birthday, namely the 2nd of December 2018. She was declared murdered while carrying out her hobby of traveling around the world in New Zealand, because it turned out that she was just opening Tinder for fun at that time, and intended to have a one-night stand with a man who she thought was very handsome, rich, and also educated. His name is Shane Kempson. At that time he said he was 27 years old, and just so you know, Jessica's appeal hearing just finished a few days ago, namely 22 December 2017. Jesse's photo was blurred in several media at the request of the New Zealand government. But it's okay. It was published a few months ago. Maybe some of you already know the case, because it is quite viral. For those of you who don't, I have a CCTV summary. From the time they met for the first time until Jesse was arrested at the hotel where he was staying, namely at the Sea Life Hotel at the Auckland, New Zealand. Before we continue, support this channel by clicking the subscribe button and also turning on the notification. So next time, for example, if I upload something exciting, you will be the first to know. Grace Millane is from Wickford, Essex, England. Graduated from the University of Lincoln, majoring in advertising and marketing. She was not yet 22 years old, and her hobby is traveling. At that time her trip around the world started from South Africa. She was there about 6 weeks, and then she was scheduled to go to New Zealand, starting the 20th of November 2018. But she said at that time, she was still in the Upper North Island. She just moved to the city of Auckland on 30 November 2018 and stayed at a budget hotel, where usually the same room was occupied by several very frugal tourists or backpackers from all over the world. That's where she said Grace Millane was just casually opening the Tinder app to look for a one-night stand. According to several sources, Grace likes to have sexual relations, rough sex. So, while having sex, being strangled, beaten, and the like, the master has the slave. Like that. If you search on Google, maybe you will be able to see everything about this. Until finally, she met Jesse Simpson, who happened to be staying at a luxury hotel called City Live. So, on Tinder, there is a filter. For example, if you want a partner whose hobbies or orientation in sexual relations are like, well, they both match, they both like rough sex in that way. That's why they were told to finally make a video call before making an appointment to meet the next day. Jesse declares himself to be a man who works in the property sector, is rich and is doing his job. Meanwhile, in Jesse's biodata that I read, he was disowned by his father and mother, who were divorced. Eventually he grew up with his uncle in Australia. As a child who was not recognized in childhood. Jesse's teenage years were quite difficult, even though he ended up becoming an athlete in college and returned to Auckland, New Zealand in 2016. Finally, on the 1st of December, 2018, they had an appointment to meet. The handsome Shane Kempson, and also the beautiful Grace Millane. Next, I will show their CCTV, from various angles and places. The duration of the CCTV, released by the police, was originally up to 4 hours. But I'll show you, after a short time, the most important part.
On CCTV footage, we see her date show up. The two greeted each other with a hug and then went inside. They took the escalator up to Andy's Burger Bar, where they ordered drinks and chatted for about a half hour before leaving Sky City at 7:12 p.m. After this, they headed to Mexican Cafe, which was right across the street. Once they were at the Mexican Cafe, Grace ordered a sangria and the pair sat in the corner. The two just sort of people-watched those around them. So, the two had stayed at the Mexican Cafe and drank a good bit before they went up to the counter at 8:27 p.m. to close their tab. Her date paid the bill, which included 2 jugs of margarita and 1 of sangria. Still, at this point, Grace appears to be in a great mood. She was happy and chatting with the waitress. Once they left the Mexican Cafe at 8:30 p.m., they went to the Bluestone Room on Durham Lane, and the two sat down at a table. And still, both of them looked like they were having a great time. However, while she was gone, her date picked up her purse, rifled through it for a bit, and then put it back on her seat. Again, not exactly sure why he did that or what he was looking for. After a few minutes, Grace returned and they left. Then, by 9:40 p.m., they arrived at City Life Auckland. This is a hotel and apartment combined complex type of thing. This is where her date lived, and it was right across the street from the Bluestone Room. Once at the complex, the two got into an elevator and rode up to the 3rd floor. And again, Grace appears to be happy and comfortable. Once they got off, they walked down the hallway and were no longer seen on CCTV footage. By 8 a.m., we can see him entering the elevator by himself, then we see him leave his apartment. He then went to the warehouse on Elliott Street and bought a large gray suitcase. He can be seen browsing around, trying to decide which one to buy before picking one out. By 8:14, he can be seen going back to his apartment with this gray suitcase. At 8:35 a.m., he once again goes back into his apartment's elevator, and this time he went out to a Countdown supermarket. There, he bought a carpet cleaner, a pack of gloves, and a pack of gum. He paid for all of these items in cash at a self-service checkout and got back to his place at around 8:40. We can once again see him on his apartment's elevator with all of these items. So, by 10:33 a.m., he left his apartment once again. While in the taxi, he appeared relatively calm and happy, though he did show some subtle signs of being nervous. A short time later, by 10:40 a.m., he got to Apex Car Rental Shop and rented a car to use for 24 hours. Here, he paid with a credit card, then drove back home. Once he got back home, he was on Google once again, and then at 2:53 p.m., he left his apartment once again. About an hour later, at around 4 p.m., he is seen on CCTV footage at the Revelry Bar on Pawnasby. This is where he met up for a date with the woman that he had been messaging on Tinder. After the date, he went back home before leaving once again at 7:20. By 7:30 p.m. that night, he is spotted again with his red rental car in the parking garage at the Countdown supermarket. Here, he was browsing a Rug Doctor stand. He went back home at 7:45, empty-handed, but headed out once again to go and rent a rug cleaning machine. We can see him bringing the rug cleaning machine and some cleaning soap to his apartment. After taking it to his apartment about an hour later, we see him go back into the elevator with the cleaning machine and then went back to the store and he returned it. He is then seen leaving his apartment with the luggage cart. On the cart, there are 2 suitcases and he has a black sports bag. He then leaves the apartment complex with the luggage carts and then puts the luggage into his rental car. He then went and parked his car in the Wilson's parking lot and left it there overnight. After this, he once again goes to the store. By 6:50 a.m., he stopped at the Western ITM hardware store and buys a shovel with an orange head and 4 bolts.
After buying this shovel, Jesse took the suitcase, containing Grace Millane's body, to an area called Waitākere Ranges, located about 19 km outside the city of Auckland. This is an area near the beach, which has black sand, and there are still quite a lot of swamp areas around it. It is suspected that Jesse buried Grace Millane's body naked, to remove any traces of DNA or fingerprints on Grace's body. Next, I will continue with a little bit of CCTV, where the time Jesse Kempson threw away his sexual tools, then went to the laundry to wash Grace Millane's clothes before throwing them away. Because he thought that if he threw it away without washing it, if it was found by the police, DNA or fingerprints could be found. Jesse is also quite intelligent. Note a little note that Grace Millane's parents in England then reported it to the police in England, who were then assisted by the police in New Zealand. Because on the 2nd of December, Grace's birthday, her parents called and didn't answer. Until December the 4th, one of her parents started to get suspicious. That's why detectives in New Zealand, led by Mr. Scott Beard, then searched for Grace, 2 days before making the arrest, which turned out to be Jesse Kempson, who according to CCTV, was the last person who was with Grace Millane.
After this, he dropped his bags off at the Mint dry cleaners, then headed to the warehouse again to buy another suitcase. After this, he goes to the car wash to clean out the inside and outside of his rental car, and he also cleaned a pair of shoes. He then took the shovel out of his car and left it there, leaning it against the wall. Then, by 4:50 p.m., he took all of the belongings that Grace left at his apartment to Albert Park and put them in the trash. At 8:43 a.m., he left once again, this time wearing a suit. Then we can see police officers in the lobby of the apartment complex talking to the front desk people. We then see the man walking around outside of the complex while police are still inside. After he walked off, police went out and started chasing him until they eventually caught up with him.
Until finally, after carrying out a deeper investigation, since the 8th of December, 2018, and carrying out the demolition of the location, on the 9th of December, 2018, which finally succeeded in finding Grace Millane's body, the police officially determined Jesse Kempson as the perpetrator and responsible for Grace Millane's death. The trial in this case was quite long, from November 2019 to February 2020. Jesse Kempson admitted everything. What happened to Grace Millane was an accident, due to a sexual act that had a violent nature. And this is also according to Grace Millane's request. Jesse said, so Grace Millane is said to be hyper, and really likes extreme things in sex activities. This is what ultimately led her to her own death. Jesse said they had sexual intercourse, while hitting, choking and even biting each other, which was sharp and hard. And they did all this on the basis of mutual consent, through mutual agreement. Because it's both strange. Even at that time, Grace Millane said, she asked to be strangled as hard as he could. And indeed the results of a medical autopsy showed that Grace had strangulation marks on her body, and the cause of death was suffocation. Although according to investigations, there were also several traces of blood on the floor of the City Life hotel room. Jessie only said that Grace had a nosebleed, but Grace Millane's parents still didn't believe Jessie and said it was only Jessie's excuse. Because it turns out that 3 months before meeting Millane, it was said that the results of Jessie's investigation had forcibly tarnished 2 women he met via the Tinder application. The 2 women then also appeared at the trial and cornered Jessie Kempson, although both women admitted that the violence they carried out with Jessie was initially due to a promise to have fun using a rough sex. But it turns out that Jessie was really overreacting. That's why the 2 women didn't report it to the police, because they were confused about the extent of what the rough limits were actually. Until finally, on the 21st of February, 2020, Jessie Kempson was found guilty of the death of Grace Millane, with second-degree murder, and sentenced to 17 years in prison. But then Jessie said he filed an appeal with his lawyer, again because he was hampered by the pandemic. So Jessie Kempson's appeal hearing was held on the 22nd of December, 2020, but it was rejected, and he was still sentenced to 17 years in prison. In fact, he said there was an additional 3.5 years for sexually rough treatment of 2 other women. The following video shows Jessie Kempson being interrogated by police officers.
I went to the warehouse at the atrium and brought a suitcase. I went back and I was just in shock because it just didn't seem right. I left to go and get cleaning products. So I messaged a friend and said I'll meet you at Revelry. After finishing drinks with her, I got back to City Life. And the whole time I just kept saying, I'm sorry. And then I went downstairs and I grabbed the porter thing and I put the suitcase on top of the porter thing. I drove the hire car into Wilson's car park and parked it. I woke up the next day at about 5 a.m. and drove the car out to Cumu at first. I picked up a shovel from ITM at Cumu. I ended up driving towards the Waitākeres. I went into the bush. I dug a hole. I went and got the suitcase and I covered the hole. And then I drove.
Where is her possessions?
I threw them in the rubbish.
Whereabouts?
Albert Park rubbish.
Right. So what items of her property have been disposed of in Albert Park?
Everything.
All of her clothing?
Everything that was in the room.
Right. Whereabouts did you clean the car? The outside of the car?
I think it was in Henderson. I don't know West very well.
Okay. And what did you use to clean the car?
Water blaster thing from the car cleaning place.
Did she have any injuries?
Not that I can remember. I was just panicking.
Did you inflict any injuries on her that caused her to die?
No.
Did you kill Grace Millane? Okay. And you're under arrest for the murder of Grace Millane on or about the 2nd of December. Do you understand?
Yep.
Did you intend to cause her death?
No.
Are you ready to take us to where she is?
Yeah.
What do you think, Hart? In my opinion, Grace Millane is also wrong. She travels around the world, and in every city or country she visits, she always opens Tinder to look for a one-night stand. If you visited 100 cities, it would be scary, so Grace Millane would immediately do this. Is it because she's hyper and likes sexual violence? You comment below. And my advice is that if you are traveling, enjoy traveling and the scenery. Don't look for strange things on Tinder or other dating applications. If you like this video, don't forget to click the like and share buttons. For those who are stopping by for the first time, or have stopped by often but haven't subscribed yet, don't forget to click the subscribe button first and turn on the notification, so that next time, for example, if I upload a new video, you will be the first to know. And don't forget to watch all my other videos. Stay healthy, thank you.